Hey everyone, welcome back to session number 9 of our ACP-620 studies guide. Ronnie may or may not be joining us. No, scratch that. Ronnie has indeed entered the building, and so we are ready to kick it off. Ronnie, good morning.
Yep.
At least I was in the right place. I always get freaked out.
I was not. I thought I was. I swear I clicked on the right thing, and then I look up and it's the wrong one.
And before we get too far, I am wearing my Revyz vest today, which came in quite handy because these are actually reflective, and at night they came in clutch walking around the streets of the hood of Anaheim. And so shout out to Revyz for providing us with not only safety, but our backups.
Yeah. I'm told I have one with Revyz. I just got to get to an event where they're at.
I don't know that you need to get to an event where they're at, but maybe an event where Bob is at.
One or the other.
I'm pretty sure Bob took yours. I have something for you too. So we kind of divided and conquered the... To Bob's defense, he didn't want to ship you an item, so... Or should I say to my
care.
Well, one of the items involves a battery. And you know how shipments are with batteries and stuff.
Yeah. They just gotta know about it.
Yeah.
So they don't.
You don't know about it? Wait, you don't know about all the swag that we have for you?
I've heard bits and pieces, but not the full list.
Yeah, a couple of people they remembered you. A few people remembered you, and so a few people gave us some swag for Rodney. But you definitely want to get your Revyz vest. This one's cool. Although I don't know what you are. I'm a fueler. And here's my...
I'm sure. But yes, thank you, Revyz, for having our back, backing us up.
All right, let's jump into it because I want to actually finish. I want to take this test someday.
You're going to take it, and you're going to pass it. And then you're going to complain about having to take it.
Yes, there will be that. Okay, so where did we leave off at? So we left off in understanding post functions to set resolutions automatically, I think. And most workflows, you're going to want to transition this. I can't tell you how many people forget this, though. It's like an obvious thing to do, except for even for me, who have done thousands and thousands of workflows. I will always forget this.
This is why, again, even if Jira does not have that screen, I will make it and add it to this so that people can select their resolution. I know, Alex, you have the opposite problem, but there should ever be only one final destination. Hopefully not behind a log truck.
Just a very big trunk. What I was looking at a post. Apparently, there were log trucks driving around LA recently.
Yes. Brilliant marketing. I still can't drive behind a logging truck. And that's a big industry around here, so you have to eventually. And I'm still like, nope. I will go into oncoming traffic first.
Try your luck on the other side of the road. Oh, movies. They're just so funny. The things that we grew up with and things that my children will never experience. Like, have you ever seen the thing about how do you answer the phone?
One moment. My headphones are acting up.
Uh-oh. We're getting technical difficulties. Well, while Rodney figures that one out, we're going to continue with our best practices for post functions. So when configuring your post functions, keep these best practices in mind. When adding a new post function, ensure they're in the correct order. You don't want to copy a field. Yeah, I feel like we read this already, but you do. I think it's worth reiterating. Post functions are going to happen in sequential order. So don't have something happen and then something else undoes what you just did, because that would be bad. Ask yourself if the post function is necessary before you add it, because you might have some unintended consequences. And avoid relying on third-party apps, which I know you made a comment last time about.
Yes.
This.
My point is, bad Atlassian. One way we could get around the automation cap for automation for Jira is using third-party apps in post functions, especially. So I feel like this line right here isn't so much about what it actually says, because this isn't as big a problem as Atlassian seems to imply it is here. but it would definitely make you more reliant on the automation for Jira, and therefore more willing to go to the higher tiers to avoid the cap.
Yeah. Some best practices for work for properties, which I tend to avoid. I don't do a whole lot of properties, but ask yourself if the property is necessary. You should always ask yourself with these things, because with workflows, regardless of what you're doing with the workflow, there's a high probability that the workflow is going to be shared. So impacting one workflow will actually impact a lot of people. So be careful with that. Ensure that you enter the property key correctly, which we talked about, copy paste, because if you don't copy paste, if you try to just do it out of memory, you might not yield the results you want.
You will. It's not even a may. You will get it wrong.
Yeah. Even if it's like a simple thing like true or false, you'll always forget which one's a false and which one's a true. Configure as many permissions as possible in the permission scheme. So again, very, very rare case where you have to do some property in there, but it's comes handy because the permission scheme can't do it all the time. Sarah, welcome. Instead of using a property to make work uneditable, allow Jira admins to edit work items. This way, only the Jira admins. And remember, I was telling you, don't do this either, because then you become the bottleneck. But you said, I'm enough of a bottleneck that I don't mind doing that. To each their own, I suppose. Right.
But yeah, to Alex's point, though, workflow properties should be your option of last resort. They're not as visible. They're not as easy to work with. They're very much advanced functionality. Use them if you need them, if the requirement is there, but look for any other option first.
Literally any other option. Except automation rules.
And then, well, you don't want to burn out automation rule execution on something like that.
Yeah. All right. I think this is where we actually left off, which is best practices for managing workflows. So setting up your workflows in Jira is pretty straightforward, but you'll avoid a lot of maintenance and confusion if you spend time carefully gathering users' requirements. Meet with your stakeholders as the first step. Duh. I think we covered these two.
Yeah.
Ask a bunch of whys. Create a workflow diagram outside of Jira. I think this is a very important step. I think having some sort of a whiteboard, or just even on a piece of paper, what the diagram should look like is very critical. But what I urge you to record, because I see these a lot in Miro, right? And nothing against Miro, because this is not, don't do it in Miro. But what I will tell you, whether you're doing it on paper or whiteboard, Confluence, Miro, whatever tool you're using, put the name of the transitions. Because a lot of people will remember the state for the statuses, the names for the statuses. They'll draw lines connecting things together, and they will forget two things. They will forget the names of the transitions, because you need those. You can't just add a line in Jira. You have to give it a name. And two, remember, you got to go back. So architect into your solution ways back in case things go south on you.
Again, I'm going to give you a different view, and not saying Alex is wrong here. My preference is not what he says, unless absolutely necessary. But I like to name my transitions after the destination status. So if it's going from to do
I didn't say not
to
give
in
it
progress.
But I didn't make a recommendation what you should name it. I simply said you should have a name.
Yeah. Well, this solves the problem already, because the name is implied by where it's going. But it makes it super clear to the end user, if I click this button, this is where it's going to end up.
But this is not where we have a little bit of a difference of opinion here, because I don't necessarily not agree with what you just said. I think it's fine. But I think as we're talking about workflows, you should understand how these are rendered to the user. So when you use a global transition, which this one does not have, so let's not talk about that. When you do not use a global transition, you will see the transition name here and then the status. And so if I heard you correctly, you would recommend you put in progress?
Yes. And again, this is the new UI. In the old UI, all you got was the transition name.
So in the new UI, or no, I would say in the cloud, though, because I've seen this through in Jira Cloud.
I mean, it may be a cloud thing, but still.
Yeah. Rodney doesn't spend as much time in the cloud as I do. But this, I think, tends to confuse folks a little bit as well, right? Because if it's just in progress, they're like, wait, what does this mean? So this is why you should think about your transition a little bit better. However, if you're in a project that does not have, or that isn't not, my gosh, Alassane, why did you make this so hard? I just want to open up an issue. Why do I have to click 7 times to get to an issue? If you do not use the explicit transitions, but rather you're using global transitions, your team only sees the status name, no transition name. So there's a balance here. If you want to make the transition make sense, because it will show you the name of the transition, an arrow, and then the name of the status. So whatever floats your boat is what I'll say, but make it make sense. Ooh, you said the word issue. You know what, Victoria? I am forever just I'm gonna boycott work items and I'm gonna boycott this new UI.
So I've been watching Rob's learnings
Yeah,
Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. my time. Don't
6
think how
a.m.
early it is for him.
6 a.m. Pacific.
I am aware. I can do the math. But he has this whole thing about avoiding the word issue, such that he'll replace it where it actually makes sense. Like going to the comic book store for the latest comic book work item.
I'm gonna boycott it. I'm just gonna switch over to this Jura over here that is still in the tried and true UI that actually works really, really well. And we're gonna go from there. I don't like this new
I mean,
UI.
I can set up a data center instance for you.
That's even worse though. That I feel like I stepped a decade behind. All right.
Because you have.
Identify the configurations that support requirements. So after you've confirmed the requirements, focus on their key parts. So identify what kinds of work moves to the workflow. These are your work types, issue types. Have you ever seen The Middle?
No.
So there's a show based off the Midwest. I never figured out what era The Middle was in, because even though it came out like in like 2008, 9, 10, 12 time frame, it felt like it was in the 80s just by the technology that they were using. But there's a character on the screen where he's got like a, I don't know, a little complex thing where when he's lying or he's uncomfortable, he'll whisper something to himself. And so I'm like, every time I have to say work items, I'm just gonna go issue.
I mean, if that works for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to just be straight up with Victoria and everyone else in our audience. I'm going to call it issue a lot out of habit until the next time Atlassian makes a change, and then work items will be what sticks. I have been through a lot of changes with Atlassian, a lot of rebrands. This is my MO. It's frustrating, but here we are.
Yeah, Victoria gets me. I love Break. I love The Middle. It's one of my favorite shows. The Summer of Atlassian that I do on ATEC was actually inspired by the Summer of Sue.
But back on track here, I think this is an important point here, and I know you've said this before in some of your other trainings, Alex. The workflow you do on the whiteboard for the team is not what your final workflow is going to look like. It's going to inform it, but you need to think while you're doing it, what are the actual stops? What are the actual transitions? What will your final workflow be based off what you're seeing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, I mean, there's two things to think about that, because what you just said is I literally was describing a workflow that directly translates into Jira. But before you get there, you should have a process flow, which then kind of walks you through the steps in plain English of, your
Bob
there's a
does
term.
this, and then he sends it over to Sue to do this, who
Right.
sends it over to Michael to do this.
There's a lean term for this, value stream mapping. There we go. It's your value stream, right? It's where literally steps A through Z on how to get something done. You need that. Then that needs to be converted into a Jira workflow, which is usually still on a whiteboard and a piece of paper or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you convert that into Jira, because Jira is a little bit more less forgiving. If you make a mistake in Jira, like renaming a status, you can get yourself into more trouble. Whereas a whiteboard, you just like scribble it out and you're good to go.
Yep.
All right. We got a whole. Apparently, our audience here loves the middle. So, Ronnie, you're gonna have to start watching the middle, and I'm gonna have to rewatch it now because I really want to rewatch it now.
I mean, if we go by the shows I have to watch based off you, I've got about a decade worth to catch up on.
Yeah, and if I watch movies based on your recommendations, I'm staring at black screens for 30 minutes.
I'm not even going to touch that one. It's not worth the hassle today.
I was hoping I threw the hook. I was hoping I reel you ready.
Nope, not today. Not today. Try again this evening.
We'll get you back. I spent 2 hours with you today, so I'll get you. You will be vulnerable at some point. All right. Identify the states that work items can be in. These are your statuses. Again, nouns, my opinion. Identify any restrictions, who can perform this certain action. This is important. Very hard to document. I don't know that I've seen it very well, but most people try to put it in some sort of like an Excel file or a table view where you have like the transition, the status, and then the restriction. But it's important requirements to capture. My 2 cents, build the workflow first, get the transitions and the statuses because that's a whole thing by itself. And then go in and figure out, okay, which of these lines needs restrictions. Because then I think it's too overwhelming. The other thing is it's too overwhelming, right? Because if you try to put the restrictions too and you don't have the privilege, then you won't be able to fully test out the workflow. And so I like to iteratively test the workflow. So I like to build the workflow first in its entirety, test it, make sure we got the right states and transitions, because that's more critical. In my opinion, having the steps A through Z in Jira are more critical than who should be able to go through A through Z, at least on the first score run, right? Once I can actually get from A through Z, then I check. Oh man, I'm trying not to see. Then I check for the limitations and the restrictions of who's not going to be able to do it. Because if you can't get through from A through Z to begin with, then you're gonna have just more complexity you got to troubleshoot through. So do it in bite sizes here. And then identify any automatic actions. Like these are your conditions, validators, and post functions. Best practices for workflow governance. Carefully consider if you need a new workflow. As with all project configurations, limiting how many folks will improve user experience, maintenance, and site performance. So before you create a new workflow, ask, can a new work type use the same workflow? Can you modify an existing workflow? Can you use conditions, validators, or functions to address a new requirement rather than a new workflow? I've never taken the test running, but I really hope that they don't ask these kind of questions on the test.
I think we'll expect questions similar to what we've already seen on the 120 around workflows.
Okay. I guess we'll scroll down to the bottom, but this would worry me because I can imagine a question about Atlassian. If you're watching, Joanne, Ray, you're watching. I haven't taken the test. I don't have access to any questions. I'm hypothetically making up a question right now. I can imagine a question of like, a typical scenario of like Sue's got this and she wants to do that and she doesn't want this to happen. Should you create a new workflow or should you add a function? And with these, it's so subjective because there's no right answer, right? It's a subjective answer. I have a problem with those kind of questions.
That's the reason I think they would avoid that kind of question because it is so subjective. You and I both know from experience that being a Jira admin is as much an art as it is a science.
With a much heavier lean on the art side.
Yeah. Trying to find that right balance between when you do something new versus when you modify something versus when you just tell them no.
Yeah. So anyways, but do ask yourself these kind of questions. This, I think, comes with experience. So if you're newer to Jira, you might not feel as comfortable. These might not be as intuitive, but subconsciously, after you make enough workflows and you work with enough teams, you'll be asking these questions. But if you are a new Jira admin, I would actually have these questions handy because these are great questions to ask when somebody's asking for a new workflow. Because as a Jira admin, part of your job is to kind of be like the gatekeeper and also to kind of keep the peace and the order within Jira. And you should ask very similar questions when somebody asks for a new project, when somebody asks for a new issue type, when somebody asks for a new workflow, a new field. You always got to ask not what do you want build, but should you build what they're asking you to build. And these are great types of questions to kind of help answer that question.
Again, we're taking the tests from the perspective of a Jira or project admin, so we've got to be thinking: is this something worth asking the Jira admin for?
Or have an
But the
answer
fact
ready to
is,
go when they ask you.
your Jira admin, if you're taking this from the perspective of project admin, your Jira admin is there to be the expert. So coming at them with a solution ready to go may actually annoy them rather than explaining what the requirement is and then what you think a solution is that would address that requirement.
Yeah.
Because they may, having that full perspective, have a different idea about how to solve it that you may not have considered. Oh, we already have a very similar workflow that the other group is using over here that you're not even aware of that can address this need.
Always check which properties used your workflow. Before editing a workflow, know exactly which projects. Oops, wow, I can't even read. Know exactly which projects use that workflow. All changes to a workflow apply to all projects. So great advice, but I would also tell you, never, ever, ever, ever rename a status, because even though you think you're going to be doing a change to just the projects that are shared by that workflow, this will be a global change that everybody's impacted by. So yes, on this, but also never rename a status.
Me and Alex are working on putting together the 7 deadly sins of Jira, and that is literally sin number 1.
Is it? I was going to ask, is that number 1? All right. We need to figure out, by the way, in the chat here, if you guys all want to help us, we have like what, 4 sins right now? Four deadly sins?
We have 2 listed, but I think there's more we've thrown around.
So if y'all have an idea or what would like to throw out, what is your Jira deadly sin? Let us know. Ronnie and I want to put it on a shirt. All right. Keep your workflows as simple as possible. So there's value in the KISS principle, the KISSING. So yeah, keep these as simple. My 2 cents, and I've told you this in the last session, is always, whenever possible, keep those global transitions. That's going to make your workflow the easiest. If not, then find a right balance of transitions, because there's a couple of tips that I'll give you. Figure out a way to correctly place your statuses so that the lines don't crisscross as much. Because the moment your lines start crisscrossing, you're getting all kinds of trouble. Number 2, and Ronnie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. But what are your thoughts on when you go from one status to the other? Actually, you know what? Let me just show you. What are your thoughts on this? I'm very, very curious. I like readability, but I feel like it creates more of an etch-a-sketch. But I feel like you make less mistakes. But just curious, how do you feel about when you have this? You see how I have one transition that goes out into in progress and one back. What I see a lot of people do is this, where it's both on the same line. It's a cleaner workflow. You eliminated a line, but if you're not careful,
now what happens when you have to select one of those 2?
Right, but if you're not careful, so 2 things, right? Yeah, if you're not careful trying to select one, I mean, you better have the greatest amount of patience in the world, because trying to get one or the other literally becomes a nightmare, right? And 2, if you're not careful, you will miss the little, like, see here, I don't see, it's not obvious to me that I'm coming from in progress into new, because I don't see the little black arrow. I see it down here, but I don't see it here because it's kind of hidden, right? See how like I have to really stretch it out to finally see it. So it's harder to read if you're not as well versed in workflows. I love this. I like doing it this way, but now you run the risk of really creating an etch-a-sketch. So you got to go ask yourself, is the transition really needed? Because one thing that you can find patterns, like if, for example, if everything, this is a really, really funny one, right? Like a lot of people like to add a status of blocked. I'm not a huge proponent of a blocked status, but people like adding the status of blocked, and then guess what? You can go block from here, right? Block from here, block from here, block from here. Well, if you can go to a status from all the statuses, then that's what this button's
Just
for.
use the global transition.
And then
now
you just
the
need
trick
to worry
comes
about the way
in
out.
is the outbound, because now you have everything that go to blocked, but now where does block go to?
I think we go back to that reopen discussion. My 2 cents, if you were blocked and you you have new information, I don't think you should go back to the status you came from, but rather you should either go back to new so you can reevaluate your life, or pick off the progress in progress. Those would be the only two
I
places I would send it to.
That's my recommendation. I've had people fight against it. Back to your original question, when possible, what I'll do is I'll ladder them up, so all the statuses are in line, and have each transition separated out between them, and then just the complications go off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be really careful when you're crafting these things, then, to not get to. I mean, you call it etch sketch, I call it spaghetti. Either way, it's a pet peeve.
And for those of you that are too young to see an etch a sketch, this is what an etch a sketch looks like. And if you look at some images, this is what your workflows can look like. This, where you just have lines going everywhere.
Yep. But
again, simple challenge as much as you can here. You're gonna get pushback, but really ask if there's a better way, or if you have to do it that way. I'm working with a team right now, and they just have it's an etch a sketch, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, it's taking me an hour to recreate a workflow because I gotta trace every line, and you can't trust every line because every line could be two lines. They're just stacked on top of each other. So you really got to pay attention and really got to be careful. Always test in a separate project or sandbox. This is very true. When in doubt, go somewhere else. Sandboxes are your friend. Make a copy. I will tell you that Atlassian needs to. I my 2 cents. Atlassian, if you're watching, we need an improvement on the sandbox capabilities, because you can't override the existing settings in your sandbox every time you want to bring new production data. Like, there's got to be a better way for them to figure out deltas. What's up, Sean?
Hey, Sean.
You got to say, hey, boss.
Do I?
Yes. He's working, I promise.
Continuing education. But you're absolutely right here. Especially when you're trying to bring stuff from your sandbox back to production to go to work, is a nightmare. And there are tools to make it easier. Thank you, Revyz, for backing us up. But it is still not an easy thing to look at.
Yeah, it's painful. So this is actually a good use case from Revyz, because we've been talking a lot of Revyz sandbox to production, but Revyz will work from production to the sandbox as well, right? There's a use case where maybe you have, because let's be honest, I've never seen production and test environments ever be parity, right? Be at the same step. You always go off and do a little something extra in one of the two environments. So you're always going to be off. And so this is, again, where Revyz will come in handy, where if you've already done a change in production, but that change hasn't made it to your sandbox, you should bring it in to your sandbox, but not using the copy everything again, because you will overwrite everything in your sandbox, which is not a good feature in Jira. Ivan, hello. All right. And use the audit log to understand the changes. This is your best friend and has gotten a lot better, but this is the ultimate finger pointer.
I mean, Justin, we can test everything in prod, but friends don't let friends test in production.
I have done this, though. I had a situation where I was spearheading a new workflow and a new way of doing things. Specifically, I renamed the epic into feature, and then I did the whole safe workflow type of thing. And a team was like adamant. They're like, we need to start today. And I'm like, guys, I'm not ready. Like, we're still testing things. And they're like, well, we needed to start last week. So get us in wherever you can. I'm like, I can get you into the sandbox, but at some point I got to pull you out of there. They got sent so deep into the sandbox, they were treating the sandbox as production, that when it came time to move them out, I cried. I cried a lot.
And this is going back 10 years now when I did this. So A, I was a lot less experienced, and B, this is back before cloud was really big. Even data center wasn't really a thing yet. We were on server. I did not label my server and production instances properly. and I was doing some server side configuration test for an upgrade we were planning, and I did not label them correctly. I did not realize I was making changes to production. So when I made my changes and restarted the instance, all of a sudden I started hearing from all around me, "Hey, is Jira down?" And then your gut just drops.
That is one of the benefits of being in the office. You get
Mm-hmm.
feedback quickly.
Yes.
You get feedback real quickly. I think I did. I remember 2017. I distinctively we added a field configuration, made a field required, went to lunch, came back from lunch to like 100 emails and a bunch of pissed off people. they couldn't create stories in Jira because I made a field required.
Sean, I do this now, and also on the server side, if I'm dealing with the data center instance, I will have it big bold letters on the server name, prod or test. But
Yeah.
all that was from this one incident early in my career where I did not pay attention to that.
I do hot red on mine, and I put a banner across
I
the whole
do-
thing that says sandbox.
I do red on the internal test instance for our team where we test upgrades. I do orange for the user-facing test instance where I release stuff to the users for testing.
This works too. Make one dark mode and one prod. The only problem is, Justin, this is a personal setting. So you got other Jira admins coming in there. They might not fare as well as you. And this is from personal experience. I've had somebody not go in because in the cloud, it's subtle. It's the URL that's the only indicator that you're in the one versus the other. And unless you're used to staring at the URL, you might not remember you're in the sandbox. But yeah, change the color on one or both, and then add banners. My 2 cents, and then dark mode. This is a triple safety here. Okay. Troubleshoot your workflow. So workflows are complex and interact with many configurations in Jira. These are some of the most common problems and how to troubleshoot them. I would write these out. I print these out. I'd have them on your office wall.
Tattoo them on your forearm.
Maybe this is our next shirt, Ronnie. Is Jira working? No. Did you try this? Did you try this? All right.
Print it upside down so you can just look at it.
You look down and read it. And then a copy on the back of the shirt the right way up for everybody else. So you can just go. Did you read the sign? Okay. So if a user can't see any transitions, check the transition work items permission. If a user can't see a specific transition, check the transitions condition. So I'm not going to read through all these, but again, these I feel it should be on a T-shirt somewhere, or at least printed out in your office so that you can run through these, because you have to go mouse pad. Oh my gosh. My wife, if she's watching, I hope she's watching. We just found our new merch. I wonder how much of an Atlassian course we can turn into merch.
At least 50% if this is any indication.
All right, let's see what we've learned. Ruth is a Jira admin who administers a company managed project. Some of her project members report that they can't transition work from to do to in progress in the status field. They can only transition to done. What could be the case? Wow. Again, tattoo these. If you tattoo answers to your body, what do they do at the test center?
Make you cover up with a shirt and then monitor you.
That would be a way to get.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of. Okay, so this is a hard one, folks. This is probably the hardest question we've gotten all the study sessions, and we made it 9. So Ruth is a Jira admin who administers a company managed project. That automatically needs to put you in a state of mind. Okay. Some of her project members. So this is not a Ruth problem. That's another key indicator. This is not Ruth's problem, right? She can fix the problem, but it's not her problem. But a project member reported that they cannot transition work from to do to in progress, but they can go to done.
Again, the keyword some, which means some of them can do this.
Yep. So process of elimination, the screen for that transition. This is a field. This is wrong automatically. Okay, eliminate that one. The conditions for that transition. This is a possibility because remember, conditions will prevent certain users from being able to do something. However, the thing you need to know about conditions is if you don't meet the condition, that particular transition won't even show up. So for them, we don't have enough in this question to tell us that they cannot see the to do to in progress transition.
They just can't do it.
They
Which,
just can't do it.
if this
Right?
was an actual ticket, this is we start asking questions. But
Right.
during this test, let's continue looking at some of the
Yeah.
other things.
So, but this is the most correct so far, but I'm not convinced that this is the right answer.
Yes.
The transition work items permission in that permission scheme. This can't be the problem either, because they can also transition to done. The
Yes.
transition work items would be all transitioning, so it can't be that either. And the status mapping for board columns, that can't be it either, because you can still they specifically set the status field. So even if a status is not on a board, you can always open up a work item and transition it from the status field. So this one's the most correct, but I still think it's the wrong answer.
I think it's the most correct answer here.
Right, but it's not the right answer because they should not be able to see the to do to in progress. All right. Raul is a Jira admin who's administering a company managed project. He doesn't want users to edit work in the status of done. What's the best practice to follow? So again, remember, we got company managed and we want all users. He doesn't want users to edit when it's in a specific status. So we already know it's a property. So grant the edit work item permission to no one. Now remember, if you do this one, you just paused editing for all issues, work items, across all users. So not a requirement. This is too drastic. Grant edit work items permissions to the administrator's role only. Again, doesn't quite solve the problem. Use the Jira work items editable property. And now, folks, this is where you have two that basically start with the same. So now we got to look for the differences. The top one is specifically saying to make done work items uneditable. And the other one's to restrict editing done work items to Jira admins. The question is saying he doesn't want users. So C would be the most correct. What do you think, Ronnie?
Again, we're making a distinction between users and Jira admins here. Best practice would say the bottom. Again, given the information we have here, this is the point where you ask more questions. So, because right now either C or D can be correct. I think D is more correct, but I definitely see the argument for C.
Well, I mean, the question says he doesn't want users to edit work and done. It doesn't say anything about the Jira, but I mean, this is the best practice. Restrict editing done just to the admins.
I mean, yes, that's the best practice, and that's why I'm saying it's the more correct answer. But
yeah, this one meets the requirement. This one,
again, in your Jira admin practice, this is a point where you go back and ask more questions.
Yep. So let's go with D, because now that I reread it with your eyes, this is gonna make it so that it's only so that everybody can edit except for the Jira admins, which is the best practice. Now this is what I like. The all four options would technically prevent the users. If Rahul grants edit, no, okay. So suppose Rahul edits the permission uneditable. This will seriously complicate his and other Jira admins' ability to manage this project and its work. But the requirement didn't say anything. The test here didn't tell us. The question didn't say that somebody needs to be able to edit. It just says, I don't want anybody to edit.
Agreed. And the real answer here, if you are taking this test or just trying to learn how to manage Jira here, is ask.
Yeah.
Get clarification. Don't assume.
Do not assume. All right. Configuring internal notifications in team managed projects. So this should be easy because you really can't do a whole lot.
You would think, but I have seen people find ways to mess this up.
Justin says the kind of question that differentiates admins and users, but it could have been worded better. Yeah. So to give credit to Atlassian does kind of acknowledge that some of these questions were poorly written in the past, and they're actively working to make these worded better. What worries me is that, as we've seen throughout this entire course, they've updated this course to be work items. I would have updated the questions too. Okay.
But they got to then think up new questions that are up to the snuff to be on the test, but will never appear on the test.
Which is easier said than done. All right. So in team managed projects, project admins can configure notifications by selecting which events you'd like to notify users, different users. You can also configure which email the notifications are sent from. Some default notifications already exist, depending on your project template. You can add more notifications as well as edit and delete existing ones. So all project notifications in Jira use email, but you can also integrate messaging apps like Slack or Teams. In service projects, event-based notifications are called internal notifications and are only sent to basically licensed JSM users. These are different than the customer notifications, which are sent to customers. I love how we went from configuring internal notifications for team managed projects to literally doubling down on a JSM thing. All right.
But JSM is the new hotness.
Yeah, Atlassian will like to think. So to configure internal notifications, this kind of works the same for both, but I'm going to show you I don't like this, Rodney. I hate. Have I told you how much I don't like the new Jira?
Yes, you have.
There's a notification section here, and these are very similar to both company and I would say the mechanic is the same between team and company managed projects. The only difference is when you come over here to add a notification, in company managed projects, you have a lot more options, and I'll show you that. And you also think you have more events. So right now, this event, a comment is deleted, is the only event that doesn't currently have some notification. So if I would have removed one of these, right, then when I go to add a notification, I have two in the dropdown. So that's why this dropdown is looking a little light. Okay, but once you select an event, then you kind of pick, well, who gets notified, and you can click add, and that's it. That's all you do. On the company managed projects, though, you have a little bit more flexibility. I'm gonna show you real quick. Again, very similar in the mechanic, but as you can see, we have, I think, either they're spaced out more, you have a couple more, but I feel like there's at least a couple more in here that we don't have.
I believe there is a couple more.
Yeah, but here's the big one. One, by default, all the projects share that notification. So I have 49 projects in this instance, and they're all using the same one. But two, when I go to add, instead of just the 6 or so that I had in the other one, you have a lot of options. You can do current assignee, the reporter. You can do a single user. You can do a specific role. You can go to a group. You can even create a custom field of a user type and send it to them, or even a custom group type and send it to them. So a lot more flexibility, but again, same mechanic, just a lot more freedom in the company managed.
I will say this: be really, really careful when you are editing the notification scheme. Jira has a lot of events that send emails. So if you have something like project lead for a bunch of these different events, they will get flooded with email.
And then they'll turn off their emails, and then you just lost a lot of the effectiveness of Jira.
Yeah. I tell the story often. I had a project admin once who was convinced they want to know about every little thing that happened in their Jira project and would not be talked out of it. No matter how much I warned them, told them this was a bad idea, here's what's going to happen, here's why you don't want to do this, they were adamant. When you have people like that, sometimes you just have to let them experience it. So I did. I created a notification scheme. I set them up to be notified about every event they were interested in, which was not a short list. I put it into production and waited, and it only took 24 hours before they were back at my desk saying, yeah, that was a mistake. Like, I wonder if anyone told you that before.
Yep. All right. Down here to just kind of, you should be aware of these. Know the different notification events and who can get them. And the list a little bit more limited and team managed. So let's explore an example. Carlos is the project admin for a team managed project. He does not want to he does not want to receive notifications when work logs are deleted. The sole exception to this is Alex. Hey, I made it in here. The team resource manager. To meet this requirement, Carlos could create a new role called resource manager and grant the appropriate permissions. Yes, there's a project role here. Assign that role to Alex. Remember, users can have one or many roles. They don't have to just have one role. Add the project role to the resource manager to the a work log is deleted event, and then remove everybody else, and you're good. If the users aren't receiving notifications, they should consider these questions. Is a user in the correct role? Is the notification being sent to the correct role? Has a notification been deleted? And did the user opt out of notifications in their personal settings? So again, a couple of hoops you got to go through to eventually get an answer. T-shirts, mouse pads, coming to you soon. All right. And the question: May is a user in a team managed project. Her project admin Lila says May should receive email notifications when someone comments on work in the project that May is assigned. So when somebody adds a comment, Maya should receive a notification if Maya is the assignee. May, oh, I'm sorry, I added Maya. Okay, May checks her assigned
Maya
work.
Better.
Yeah. May checks her assigned work in the project and realizes she isn't getting notifications for new comments. What's the problem? So many things to unravel here. First question I usually ask is, where are you getting any other notifications?
That is usually my first question, because what you'll find often cases here is user isn't getting the email notifications because they have opted out of it.
Yeah. Then the next question is, well, do you get the notification when the thing's created?
And the third question I usually ask is, do you have an email filter for Jira?
I never gone that far, but that's how I ended up with a can of spam on my desk. All right. So what could be the problem? So let's do positive elimination. So you can't use the assignee for a work item as a recipient.
This is
that's
false.
Up here. You can't. Current assignee. You can't send notifications about new comments unless comments are deleted or edited. So we come over here and this is where you got to know your events. So we have comments is edited and a comment is deleted.
What's the one above those two?
Someone made a comment. So that's a comments added. May can't receive notification. So both of these are wrong. So now we're 50-50%. We have a 50-50 shot now of getting it right. So May can't receive notifications about assigned work if she's turned them off in her personal settings. This is a possibility. And May can't receive emails because she doesn't have access to the project or its work. Huh. That's an interesting one. So she could be the assignee.
That would... Yeah, you can't be an assignee if you don't have the browse projects permission. And the assign...
Because assignable is a different permission than assign. And a different permission than browse. But this is for
it does come into play.
But this is a team managed project.
True story.
So let's go. Let's go to a team managed project.
Oh, now, boy, just to be clear, Tashar, I agree with you. The answer is 3. But for the sake of thoroughness, we're going to test this out.
Yep. So we're gonna. Oh shoot! I'm in the free version. Okay. Hold up. Not a problem. We have a paid version. Now I just got to find a team managed project in the paid version. Here we go. Team managed business. Project settings, where it should be. Top right corner. Atlassian. Put it over here in the new UI. This is where that button needs to be, right there. Right there. Okay. I shouldn't have to go fudge around looking for it in ellipses somewhere else. It should be right there. Just saying. Atlassian. private. All right. I'm a site admin. That's good. Let's not add Alana. Wait, let's try to. Okay, so I have a few people. So I'm gonna go to my list, and I'm gonna open up a ticket and assign it to Alana. Should I go with somebody else? B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I,
I looks an awful lot like you.
J, K. I know I have more users in here. Max. Here we go. Let's assign something to Max. So we can assign something to Max, but I don't think Max can log in here.
No, he shouldn't be able to.
Everybody close your eyes for 1 second. I'll be right back. Cue elevator music, Ronnie.
I don't have elevator music queued.
Well, maybe
I'm
you
not
can
even sure I could play music right now.
like do some non-copyrighted. All right, Max.
We could do copyrighted as long as it's from our music provider.
Max Taylor is not a site admin, but let's double check. Oh, he is in the site admin, so remove the user from that group. And what else? Who else? See, project settings should be there. Atlassian, put it back. Field demo bot. This is a user. Okay. So I don't think he's gonna be field F. Okay. Max is not a user now. So he's no longer in the site admins. So let's go back to the list, grab another ticket, and assign it to Max. Oh, look at that.
And I've set up where we play music now.
Oh. So Max may can't receive emails because she doesn't have access to the project work. But that's technically not correct though, right? Because if
go back to our scenario, she's checking her issues.
Right. So
she does have access.
So we just proved that you need to have access in order to be assigned something, which is clearly stated in the problem question. She is assigned. So it has to be C. Yay. Yeah, I earned another badge. Okay. Ronnie, I say we use this as a great stopping point because this also gets very confusing. Atlassian, here we go. Let's see. We did this one. So now we got to jump into streamlining software projects and Jira automations and integrations.
Yep.
So I would say, folks, get ready. Come back Tuesday next week. Hopefully we get through this entire course, 9 lessons in this course next week. So let's see. Let's do some planning here, Ronnie. If we can get... So it's taking us 9 sessions to get through 50, 60, 70, 80 minutes. And we are committing to an 85-minute session in 2 sessions.
Again, it depends on the tangents. We should have a tangent counter on screen. That every time we go to tangents, it gets
so let's just assume, let's assume 4. That's 8, 9, 10. Let's just say we're gonna have at least 12 more sessions here. So it's probably gonna put us closer to 20 sessions here. So folks, that's too many, Ronnie. We gotta triple down. We gotta either go faster with less tangents or schedule more of these sessions. Folks in the chat.
I know you're eager to take this.
I know, folks. Let us know in the chat if you want to do it, because I have an expiration code. My code expires like in a week. I should probably sign up for the test in like June. All right. Folks, let us know if you'd be interested in a weekend session. But if anything, we're just going to keep that. You all got to help us out in the chat here. Help us stay on track. But we still have 3 more sessions. And then we still got to go through the file and make sure we hit everything. And then go from there. So, all right. We're going to do this. We're going to figure this out. These are the courses for this particular. Am I in the right spot still? Shoot, this is just this one, Ronnie. We still got to go to this one. No. That's the second one. Then we still got to do this one and do all these courses.
But
Oh
do
boy.
we really need something on agile boards?
Well, you do because
I mean, for the sake of the course, yes.
there's a
But for
board
the sake of
configuration
taking the
section
test,
that's 35%. So maybe we power
My-
through these a little bit
that's-
more.
my point is, for taking the test, because we know you want to take the test, I think it's okay because you know that part pretty well. We both do. For the course, absolutely, we should cover it.
Yeah. Let's just let's focus on powering through this and maybe not tangenting so much. And let's see where we are. We'll sign up next week, but we'll come back on Tuesday, folks. Next week, we'll set up the events in Bevy so you can sign up, share with your friends, and we're like one subscriber away from hitting 1,900 on the Jura Life. So if you haven't subscribed, now is a great time to subscribe. And also, if you've ever gotten yourself into a sticky situation in Jura and you didn't have a backup, make sure you check out Revyz here. They're our channel sponsors and made this entire course possible. And so definitely check out Revyz and back up your Jura because you never know when you're going to need a CYA. So thank you all. See you all next week. Bye.
Or see you this afternoon.
Or yeah,
Bye.
We're doing a live stream today. So make sure you come back to the Jura Life tonight or 2 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to talk with Brian Guffey about something incredible. And it's his birthday. So
Yep.
bye.
And it's his birthday.